Alright guys, today we are going to be going over square roots. I'm on page 9. Alright, so we're going to turn to that page. Now, just like the page before, we're going to set up our notebook exactly the same way. Title it Square Roots. Page number 9. Take this, put glue on it, and then put it right here. Alright, now that I have that glued in, I'm going to put the other one right here to this page. This time we are on the one that says definition of square root, radicand, and radical. Fold it in half, like so. And you're going to glue it right here so that it flips up. Alright, now that I'm done with that, we're going to talk about what a square root is. Okay, so square root is a number that when multiplied by itself it produces a quantity. So a number that when multiplied by itself produces a quantity. Now, for example, the square root of 81. So all this is basically, guys, just the opposite of what we did before with exponents. So exponents, right, 4 squared gives me 16, 3 squared gives me 9, 5 squared gives me 25, so on and so forth. So square root is the exact opposite. So the square root of 81 would be 9. Because 9 times 9, or 9 squared, is equal to 81. Now here's the secret with square roots. Alright. Well, 9 times 9 gives me 81. So therefore the square root of 81 would be 9. Well, negative 9 times negative 9 will also give me 81. Because a negative times a negative is a positive, and it will give me positive 81. So when you take the square root of a number, you don't just get the positive number. It's not just positive 9. It could be positive, or it could also be negative 9. So you would actually get either positive 9 or negative 9. It technically has two answers. Now, of course, if you're dealing with word problems, always want to use the more rational one, what makes more common sense. So if you're doing minutes, hours, days, things like that, and it's asking you to find how many hours or days, then obviously you use the positive number, positive 9. Because negative 9 days doesn't make sense. Negative 9 hours doesn't make sense. Okay? So when we look at the square root of 9 over 16, so when we're dealing with fractions, we split it up into two parts. You take the square root of the top, and you take the square root of the bottom. So the square root of 9 would be 3. Because 3 times 3 is 9. The square root of 16 would be 4. Because 4 times 4 is 16. Alright. So then my answer would be positive or negative 3/4. For this last one here, we have square root of 0.000064. Okay, so we're going to move the decimal over till I get a whole number. So I'm going to move the decimal over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times to the right. So I move the decimal over 6 times to the right. And now I'm looking for the square root of 64. So we're trying to find a number that when multiplied by itself gives me 64. Well, that would be 8. 8 times 8 is 64. So then therefore it would be 8. Now, that's not my answer. Since I had to move the decimal 6 times to the right, then to find the answer here, I'm going to cut that number in half. And I'm going to move the decimal 3 times, because the half of 6 is 3. I'm going to move the decimal 3 times to the left. So my decimal is going to be here, right here on this side. It will be 8.0, right? And I move it 1, 2, 3 times to the left, making my answer 0.0, positive or negative 0.008. Now, if you're ever unsure, please do not be afraid to use a calculator. Do not be afraid to use a calculator. A calculator is going to be your best friend here. So, I'm going to give you all some time. I want you to do these 3 on your own, by yourself. Alright, so I'll give you a few minutes to do so. Oh, please pause the video and do so. Alright, so hopefully you did those. Pause the video, you worked on them. Now we're going to go over them. So the square root of 25, okay, remember we're going to get 2 answers. There's not just a positive, not just a negative, the square root of 25. So I need a number that when multiplied by itself gives me 25. But that'll be 5 times 5. So it's going to be positive or negative 5. Square root of 1 over 36. We do the square root of the top. We also do the square root of the bottom. Square root of 1, what number multiplied by itself gives me 1? Well, hopefully we know that. It's just 1. And then the square root of 36 would be 6, because 6 times 6 is 36. We have 1.21. Square root of 1.21. So I had to move the decimal 2 times to the right. And I get 121. Well, the square root of 121 is 11. And I'm going to move the decimal half to the left 1 time, because it's half of 2. Putting my decimal right here, a positive or negative 1.1. Okay, now the definition of a perfect square is a number that when multiplied by itself, or a number that produces a rational, we're going to go over rational numbers and stuff like that here more in a moment. You guys should already know what it is, but I'll give you a little refresher later. It produces a rational number when multiplied by itself. Okay, so there are a few perfect squares that we need to remember that are make our lives a little bit easier if we just memorize them. All right. So those are going to be 1 squared. Okay, well that's going to be 1. So the square root of 1 would be 1. 2 squared would be 4. So the square root of 4 would be 2. 3 squared would be 9. So the square root of 9 would be 3. 4 squared is 16, so the square root of 16 is 4. 5 squared is 25, so the square root of 5 is the square root of 25 is 5. 6 squared is 36. Hopefully we're recognizing a pattern. The square root of 36 is 6. 7 squared is 49. 8 squared is 64. 9 squared is 81. 10 squared is 100. 11 squared is 121. 12 squared is 144. 13 squared is 169. 14 squared is 196. 15 squared is 225. Okay, now from here, guys, we can actually estimate what square roots, what values I'm going to get for square roots. Okay, because 67 is not going to make a perfect square. Well, it doesn't make a perfect square, but we can still get an estimate of what it is. Alright, so up here, right, I have this whole table here that we've already done. So, I have square root of 1. Well, it's going to be plus or minus 1. Square root of 4 is going to be positive or negative 2. Square root of 9 is positive or negative 3. Square root of 16 is positive or negative 4. So on and so forth. And it just goes down. 11, 12, 13, 14, positive or negative 15, positive or negative 16, positive or negative 17, positive or negative 18, positive or negative 19, positive or negative 20. Alright. So to estimate the square root, we have to find the two perfect squares that would be closest to 67. So if we look at our table right here, right, and we know it's going to be somewhere between the square root of 64 and the square root of 81. So it's going to be somewhere between the square root of 64 and the square root of 81. Which means my answer is going to be somewhere between 8 and 9. Okay, well 67 is a lot closer to 64. Right, so I'm going to estimate, using my squiggle on here, that I think it's going to be about 8.2. And it could be positive 8.2 or it could be negative 8.2. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's going to be around 8.2. Because 67 is only 3 away from 64, but it's about 14 away from 81. Alright, so it's a lot closer to, it would be a lot closer to 8 than it would be to 9. Now square root of 226. Alright, so two perfect squares that are closest to that. Well, if we go through here, we can look. Okay, well there's 225, and the next one is 256. So I know it's got to be somewhere between these two, meaning my answer has to be somewhere between 15 and 16. So it's going to be somewhere between square root of 225 and square root of 256, meaning my answer has to be somewhere between 15 and 16. Well, 226 is really close to 225, right? It's only one number above. So I think it's going to be somewhere around 15, positive or negative 15.1. Okay, now pause the video and you're going to have a few minutes to go over these two on your own. So pause the video, go ahead and take care of that. And then you'll be done. And then guys, here's what I want. Okay, so this time is going to be a little bit different here. This is actually going to be for a grade. I'm going to use this. I'm either going to give you a new grade or I'm going to use it to replace one of your lowest grades. Now, what this does, what you're going to do is I'm also going to include a video, okay, telling you how to turn in your assignment. It's going to show you how to attach a video to a Google form, attach a video to the Google assignment, and how to also attach a picture to the Google assignment and how to turn it in. So I want you to do these notes. Again, if you don't have a printer, that's fine. Do whatever you can. Follow along. Write these down. And if you do have a printer and you print these out, awesome, great. Put them in your notebook. Show me that you did them. And I want you to take a picture of them. And I want you to upload that picture to the Google, to the form. And then I want you to turn it in. Alright. And that's how we're going to do our assignment. It will be for a grade. I'm either going to make it a grade or I'm going to use it to replace one of your lowest grades. Alright, so please do that. If you have any questions or anything like that, just ask. Again, I will be including a video of these notes. So do the notes, take a picture, upload it to Google Classroom, and then turn the assignment in. I will also include a video of how to do that. It'll be an instructional video of how to turn an assignment in. Besides that, y'all have a good weekend.